Niklsun here, and welcome to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I'm your host, and on this show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'll be going over all of the day's movie news, as well as going over what it means for the production in general, just like casting decisions, trailer announcements, director announcements, things like that. Today's special episode, I am joined by Devin, Babb.
Howdy, everybody.
And also joined by Joseph Flint.
Hello, everyone.
And without any further ado, let's get started with today's Hot Topics. So over the past couple of weeks, a lot of people have reached out about going into a little bit more of a breakdown about the new phase that Marvel is bringing us into with the announcements of Avengers, Infinity War, and Captain America Civil War, and all those kinds of things. But the main thing that I've been trying to bring about, and I've had a couple of people asking about this, is how do they all connect to one another? What is going to be the overarching story? Is it going to be Civil War? Is it going to be the Infinity Wars? Are they going to surprise everybody and come out with Secret Wars? We're all going to delve into that today. So myself, Devin, and Joe are all going to give our opinions on what we feel is the course that they're going to be taking, as well as maybe some ideas as to what we would like to see coming about that. So for those of you who are unaware, this is the upcoming Marvel slate through to 2019. So we have Avengers Age of Ultron coming out on May 1st, 2015. Then that is followed up by Ant-Man, which is going to be on July 17th, 2015. Then we have Captain America Civil War coming out on May 6th, 2016. We have Doctor Strange coming out on November 4th, 2016. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 will be May 5th, 2017. Thor Ragnarok will be July 27th, 2017. Black Panther, can't believe they actually officially announced that, is going to be November 3rd, 2017. Avengers Infinity War Part 1 will be May 4th, 2018. Captain Marvel will be July 6th, 2018. Inhumans will be November 2nd, 2018. Finally culminating in Avengers Infinity War Part 2, which will be May 3rd, 2019. So that is a hell of a lot of work that they have to put out. But the main thing is going to be dealing with the consistency of these movies and how they are all going to fit well within one another. So with Avengers, a couple of things have recently come out. Idris Elba, the man who plays Heimdall himself, recently let slip that both he and Tom Hiddleston have recently shot a sequence for Avengers Age of Ultron. So Heimdall and Loki will be in the film in some capacity. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to what this is going to be, what type of role, how large the role is going to be. The way that it came across based on his comments was that they were there for a day. So to me, it seems like it was a very small, short scene, and it could be one of two things. I want to get your guys' opinion on this as well. The first thing is that in the leaked clip from Avengers Age of Ultron that was shown at the Marvel event a couple of weeks ago, it was a conversation between Tony Stark and between Steve Rogers. And in that conversation, they talked about how Thor had left and he had gone back to, I believe they said he had either gone back to Asgard or they intimated that he had gone back to Asgard, but he was no longer around. So the scene could either be dealing with maybe an after credit sequence where he goes back and he finds out that Loki has caused all hell to break loose leading into Thor Ragnarok, or it could be a dream sequence of sorts induced by the Scarlet Witch, because we know Scarlet Witch is going to be showcasing a lot of really kind of horrific views in each person's mind, and whether or not which one is more likely, kind of. So, Devin, what do you think is going to happen with that?
See, I'm not entirely sure. No, I mean, the idea that it's a vision induced by a Scarlet Witch is a good one, because, I mean, there's a lot of powers that the Scarlet Witch has that especially that viewers aren't going to be aware of too, because she's not as big and as well known as some of the other characters in the rest of the Avengers.
Right.
So it'd be definitely an interesting way to do it. It could also be maybe just a quick scene of him getting off the Rainbow Road and back to Asgard.
Could be.
So it's hard to say. It could be a very quick scene, just maybe to be like, hey, he's back in Asgard.
Yeah.
Or it could be a more in-depth scene with Scarlet Witch. It could be a premonition. It could be something from the past. It could be something, a sidestep, something happening at the same time.
Okay.
So it's an interesting idea. That I like the Scarlet Witch thing. I think that would be cool because you'd get a little bit more insight into her character, as well as into her abilities. And it's something that we've kind of been seeing as the abilities grow with these characters as the movies go on. So I'm not sure. I actually think it's with the Scarlet Witch just for her character development. But I'm not entirely sure. I haven't quite made my mind up on this one.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of waiting to see what we hear with the next couple leaks that we're hoping to hear before we really see anything too detailed. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure. What do you think, Joe?
Very good.
I'd have to agree.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Now with Avengers: Age of Ultron, we know that Wakanda will be featured in the movie, which of course is Black Panther's home world, well, his home city essentially, and that Ulysses Claw is most likely going to be in the film. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much who we're assuming that Andy Serkis is going to be playing based on the facial hair and just the fact that Kevin Feige said before the trailer was announced that you will get a not a spoiler, but you will get an Easter egg to Black Panther in the trailer. So, I mean, at least we know that we have Ulysses Claw to look forward to. Do you think that he is going to be the big bad in Black Panther? Do you think he's going to be the main villain in that movie, or do you think they're just building him up as somebody who could work in other films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
I think that he'd probably be the main villain, or at least one of them. See, to be honest with you, I'm not as versed in Black Panther as I could be. So yeah. I don't have a lot of input really with it. Now, I just like to say that Andy Serkis looks phenomenal as Ulysses Claw.
Oh yeah, and I mean because it's Andy Serkis, we know he's going to be giving a knockout performance. Yeah, I mean, there's no telling about that.
I'm hoping that he is the main villain in it. Whether there are other side villains. As long as we don't get some kind of cluster like we had with Spider-Man, I'm happy with it. Yeah. So, but I think Andy Serkis looks great. He's an excellent choice for the role. He's an excellent choice for all of his roles.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You can't go wrong with Andy Serkis.
No, you can't.
Really. So, I think he will be. I think he will be. But.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm starting to think that it's possible he could be the main villain, but with Marvel, there's always a bigger, badder person in the shadows. The one problem with that theory is how long can they play that, seeing as they did that with Thanos. So it's a toss-up, really.
I never even put those two eggs together, laying the groundwork out for a character like that, much like they've done with Thanos. I never even put that together yet.
That's a good idea.
You know, because, I mean, Black Panther's not going to be coming out until the end of 2017, and they're going to be introducing Ulysses Claw in the summer of 2015. So that's 2.5 years to develop that character. I mean, that's a long time. Don't get me wrong. That's almost the amount of time it would be between a standard movie and its sequel. But still, I mean, I never even put those two together. That's a really good point. Now, in dealing with Captain America: Civil War, do we think that movie is going to be a standalone, or do we think that is going to be setting up the Civil War conflict and having that sort of bleed into some of the other movies, specifically with why am I drawing a blank? Doctor Strange and with Black Panther. Those are the two storylines that I can see that could be most affected by it, because the other two that we're going to be getting before Avengers are going to be space-based. They really can't have any effect on it because they don't really care. I mean, even in the announcement video for Chadwick Boseman coming out and saying that he is Black Panther, he said that he's kind of his own guy. He's a neutral person. He's a neutral character. So maybe he's not going to pick either of a side. But do we think that Doctor Strange and Black Panther are really going to be the crux of this storyline continuing on if they decide to do that? Or is it going to be finished off in just Captain America: Civil War?
I think Civil War will have two main storylines. It'll have a standalone storyline and then partly continuation. into the rest of the movies, so that you could see Captain America as in a trilogy of the Captain America films, but also have it in the broad spectrum of the entire Marvel slate. So I think you'll have a little bit of both. I think Civil War is going to be an incredible film.
Oh God!
I think it's just going to be, because this is one of the most nearest and dear arcs of the Marvel, the whole of everything Marvel, to the fans. Like this is something that if they taint, they will destroy everything.
Yeah, this is the make or break movie. And also, I mean, you have the entire creative team from Winter Soldier coming back. You have, obviously, the cast. We know that Chadwick Boseman is going to be playing Black Panther. He is going to be appearing in costume in the movie. Tony Stark is going to be playing essentially the villain, even though it's going to be a movie that is told from both sides. They are not going to make him a clear-cut villain. He is just going to have the opposing viewpoint of Captain America. And because this is Captain America's film, he is going to be the protagonist. He is going to be the hero of the story if they had to choose one between them. Now, with all of this being said, Joe, I really want to get your opinion on this as well. Where does this leave Bucky Barnes?
Yeah, I think he could really set him up to be the next captain. Really, he could. Then again, this entire movie, I think, is going to be one big event film. Everything leading up to this, and then everything that follows is aftermath. I mean, Age of Ultron, from what we can see so far, is going to be a movie where morals really come into question. And what happens when people break morals? People start to fight. So I think it's very possible that Ant-Man even and Ultron could both play into this movie and start this big fight. I think that it's very possible that Bucky Barnes will end up having to pick up the pieces here.
Now,
Cap left.
Do you think that Bucky Barnes at the end of Cap 3 is going to pick up the shield, or do you think it's going to be sometime down the line after Infinity Wars?
I think they'll play it out a little bit. I think they're going to put him on this road to redemption storyline of him.
Well, I mean, they got him for 6 more films after Civil War, so I mean, it makes sense. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to use him. No. That just means that if they want to use him 6 more times, they have him. He has to come back. Now, there have been a couple of people out there asking, are we going to see Red Skull back?
See, it's interesting that because Marvel's been doing, hinting a lot more of this Hydra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
especially with really delving into Hydra.
Especially with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They've been doing a lot of tie-ins with Hydra, and Hydra being this terrorist organization that's attacking, the S.H.I.E.L.D. and coincidentally Marvel as well, apparently, which is strange.
Damn it, Hydra.
I know. I think that's
so smart.
It was very smart. It's very, very witty. I don't know if we're going to see the Red Skull back. We may see something that rises from the ashes of Red Skull.
Yeah.
We may see someone take his place, whether they take the Red Skull mantle, or if he's
just like a code name type thing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure. I'm actually on that point. I am curious to see how Doctor Strange and Ant-Man tie in, especially Ant-Man, because we've got let's a couple certain characters coming back.
Yes. So that's a good segue into this. So with Ant-Man, we now know that Haley Atwell will be appearing in the movie in some fashion. So we know that Peggy Carter's in there. John Slattery is reprising his role as Howard Stark from Iron Man 2. So he's going to be playing... there's been a lot of confusion about why are both Dominic Cooper and John Slattery playing this character. And it's because Howard Stark, at different points in his life, had different... I mean, not only just did he look different, but Dominic Cooper is going to be playing the 1940s, early 50s version of Howard Stark. Yeah. Then John Slattery is playing the much older version, which is going to be taking place sometime in the 70s. I think either late 60s or early 70s is when they're going to be setting the earlier versions of Ant-Man. So in Ant-Man, we know there's going to be a part early on, or set back at the late 60s, early 70s, taking place during then. Do you think those are going to be just seeds planting future engagements in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or do you think that is to tell this self-contained story?
I'm hoping that it plants seeds, because Ant-Man is, even though he's not as well known, I think Ant-Man has a lot of influence on Marvel and the Avengers. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but in the comics, the Ultron is not Tony Stark's creation.
No, he's Hank Pym's.
He's Hank Pym's, the original Ant-Man. So I'm hoping that they kind of maybe make a shift, not like an entire shift, but we've got Iron Man as your tech guy.
Yep.
Who's inventing all these cool things. But with Civil War coming up, we may see sort of a fall from Tony Stark being as prominent in the series. Mm-hmm. So we may have some more of Ant-Man's inventions being either the past Ant-Man or the later Ant-Man.
Scott Lang or Hank Pym.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see. I want Ant-Man to be more than just a bump in the road. Like,
yes.
I don't want it to be a Thor 1. I loved Thor 1, but I found Thor 1 to be a little bit rushed, and I don't want Ant-Man to be rushed. I want Ant-Man to be something that gets really into the deep in history of Marvel, and of S.H.I.E.L.D. and its forefathers.
Oh God,
so
absolutely.
I think what Ant-Man will really do is it's going to not put down any really groundwork, but it's going to put the framework behind it.
Yeah.
It's going to have the behind the scenes and not behind the scenes, but behind what you see on film is going to be a lot of what Ant-Man lays in this movie.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. We haven't seen enough about this.
Yeah, we don't really know exactly how the movie's going to fit in.
And they announced this ages ago.
Oh yeah, this was
announced one of the first. Yeah.
When they announced Iron Man, they announced Ant-Man.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's just taken this long to gestate, I guess you could say, for it to find its place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, while also telling the same story that they wanted to tell. Mm-hmm. Now, Joe, do you think that there's going to be any Doctor Strange hints in Ant-Man?
I always looked at Ant-Man kind of as this heist movie. Like, they portray it that way too. Like, it's possible, but it's a left field release. It's a left field Easter egg. They could just for the fans, because people are loyal to Marvel, and if they watch Ant-Man, they're probably going to go see Doctor Strange because Marvel's brand is on it, but I really don't think so.
I'm really curious as to how they are going to be using Ant-Man, because I mean, is it going to be this standalone film? I mean, they never really have an intention of making any of their films standalone.
Yeah.
But like, is this only going to be tying in to, because Tony Stark or Kevin Feige came out and said that with the official synopsis of Avengers: Age of Ultron coming out, it says Tony reactivates a dormant technology.
Yes.
Now, is that again leading to the fact that, okay, yes, in the movie, Tony Stark creates Ultron, but it is based on original designs by Hank Pym, kind of tying into its original source. Now, obviously, that's not that big of a deal. Clearly they've shown that they can use parts of existing storylines that work really well, that are fan favorites, but tool them in a way to make them work really, really well within their Marvel Cinematic Universe, instead of just on the comic page. Because there's things that work in comic books that do not work in movies. Yeah. And Ant-Man, for the longest time, has been regarded as one of those things that works well in a comic book, but will not work on screen. They proved that wrong with Thor, because Thor was one that a lot of people thought, you can't make a dramatic film. You cannot make it not tongue-in-cheek and still have a successful film. And they proved everybody wrong. Now they've got Ant-Man, which we know is going to be a comedy. We know first and foremost it's going to be a comedy.
Well, do we still have Paul Rudd?
Paul Rudd is still involved.
I mean, how can you not be a comedy with Paul Rudd?
Exactly. No, I mean, you could still have dramatic moments in it, but overall it is going to be a drama. Sieging into Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange has been said, especially considering the director that they've got. They've got Scott Derrickson, who, for those of you who don't know, Scott Derrickson directed recently Deliver Us from Evil, which I was mixed on. There were parts of it that I liked, but other parts that I didn't like. The main thing I really did like was the atmosphere that he created in the movie. I really liked the mood that he gave about from that. But more importantly, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. That is just a great movie, because a lot of people think of that as just a remake of The Exorcist, and it's not. It's more about the court case that deals with it, and dealing about the humanity and really getting involved with the characters. So I really think someone with Scott Derrickson's eye and his penchant for detail can really bring about Doctor Strange in a really new light. But this also means that they are going a little bit more in a horror direction, which is going to be new territory for Marvel. Joe, I know you've been biting at the chance to talk about Doctor Strange again, so without any further ado, give us a little bit more insight as to Doctor Strange and really how that can work in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, especially as a non-origin story, because they have said that this is not going to be an origin story.
Well, if they don't have it as an origin story, it's very possible that Baron Moto will not be the main villain for the first Doctor Strange movie if they decide to do any more. And that opens the door to Dormammu, the big baddie for the Doctor Strange universe. And he was always supposed to be this scary, flaming-headed guy. So it's very possible that a horror aspect could work in that favor. You have the dream realms, and you have all of the darker magic that is in the Eye of Agamotto, and it's very possible that a horror spin could work with it.
I almost wonder if they're going to go almost like a direction. Either of you guys remember the movie Dreamscape?
Oh yes.
So I wonder if they're going to go almost in a kind of a direction like that, because that film was they had touches of comedy, I don't know if it's extreme horror, but they definitely had some pretty intense horror sequence in that movie.
Yes.
And God, Max von Sydow. Love that man. But I wonder if they go in almost a similar direction to that. Is just sort of the paranormal and a little bit tongue in cheek, but at the same time, when it comes down to it, the movie's a horror film.
Yeah.
Bar none.
Yep.
So I think they might go kind of that route.
Yeah.
And I think that would be good. I think that would be good, especially with Benedict Cumberbatch.
If he officially signs on,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that he does sign on.
Yeah, let's. Fingers crossed on that one, because he's a phenomenal actor, and what he does in Sherlock, I think, would translate very well to a character like Doctor Strange.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All right, now let's get into the nitty and gritty of it. How are Guardians 2 and Thor Ragnarok going to be affecting Avengers: Infinity War Part 1? Now, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and Thor Ragnarok are easy targets for Infinity Gems to be introduced, because all the other storylines are going to be taking place in some form or another on Earth. Doctor Strange being the exception, because that can transmit through different dimensions, which that is going to take a lot of explanation to make that grounded, because that is one thing. Marvel still has its cosmic side, but they have everything rooted in a grounded science. So that's going to take a little bit of explaining. But with Guardians 2, I think the main two things that are going to be brought up, or the main three things are going to be brought up in the movie are: who is Star-Lord's father?
Yeah.
How is this going to impact with Thanos, and how much is Thanos actually going to be introduced in the movie? And what Infinity Gem, if any, are going to be introduced in this film? So there's been a lot of speculation as to who Star-Lord's father is, and I think we could talk about all day who Star-Lord's father is. Now, I'm not that well versed in Guardians of the Galaxy comics, so I don't know exactly what the options are, outside of maybe they could be twisting it a little bit and having Nova Prime or is it Nova Prime?
Well,
Is that the character I'm thinking
remember. I
of?
can't
Yeah,
remember.
Nova Prime. Either that, or there's been a lot of speculation. Adam Warlock.
yeah. I can't see. I'm not as well versed in Guardians as well. Now, coincidentally, I picked up a comic once. And I
Shut
read...
the front door.
Yeah, I know. This one time I picked up a comic. No, so I picked up one of the Guardians comics. It was in Walmart or some stupid place. That's why I'm embarrassed about it. And I remember reading the first few pages. This is when Guardians 1 was first announced. And Peter Quill mentions his father on the second page. And he introduces...
Well, it's Jason. In the comics, it's Jason.
Yeah.
Or Jason.
That's true. But Now, his father, he introduces him or mentions him as the ruler of Earth.
Oh, so you're thinking of Thor tie-in?
Who knows?
Joe and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, and I mentioned that I hope it's not an Asgardian.
No, I don't think it's an Asgardian. I'm not sure. See, it's still so vague. See, I should have done a little bit more research into it when I was, but I left it in like just a place in my mind that I'd be like, okay, once I see Guardians, I'll look into it, and it never quite happened.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, it's still in there, just rattling around. Interestingly enough, speaking of parents, well, we do have Gamora, who is the daughter of Thanos.
Sort of.
Like adopted daughter.
She said, especially in the movie, she said that Thanos came and killed her family and basically tortured her and brainwashed her, in a sense, to be her father. But now she's kind of seen what has happened, and she sees through it, and now she hates him.
Yeah.
But Joe, you actually had a couple of thoughts on who you think that Peter Quill's dad could be.
Well, Marvel gave us two clues, specifically. One, that the Junkers in the movie Guardians said that he was a jerk. That Peter Quill's father was a jerk. That's relevant there. And then two, in the scene with the DNA sequencing, when they were talking about his mother being human and his father being something else, something older, I think that they could do one of two things. They could make it a pre-existing character, or they could use this opportunity to bring in somebody new. And Adam Warlock is a great idea. I heard somebody even mention Damon Hellstrom once, which I don't see how they do, but it's possible. I don't know. I think that it's a toss-up whether or not they choose to do somebody existing or bring somebody new in.
Well, yeah, I'm really curious as to who they are going to choose, because at the very beginning also, Peter Quill's mother, while she was dying, said that he was a being of pure light. So I wonder what they're going to mean with that. If they're beholden to that, if that was just a throwaway line because she was dying of cancer, if she was just imagining something. They put a lot of speculation or speculative comments in the movie for people to not really know one way or another. So that is something that James Gunn has confirmed we are going to explore further in Guardians 2. So Guardians 2 comes out in just over 2 years. Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to be getting more information about that movie as it comes out soon. But in dealing with Thor and Thor Ragnarok, we know since the very first Thor movie, the gauntlet is in Odin's vault. Mm-hmm. He has the gauntlet. Now, Ragnarok is of two different storylines. Ragnarok 1 is obviously the clone of Thor. I don't think that's the route that they're going, because Kevin Feige even said it's the end of all things. He even called it what it means in Norse mythology. So we are going to be dealing with the end of Asgard, the destruction of Asgard. So in terms of that, are we going to get just the gauntlet in Thor Ragnarok, or are they also going to introduce a gem? Or are they going to just do a gem and have the gauntlet be Infinity Wars Part 1?
I think it might be the introduction of... See, I have a feeling that the gem may get introduced at the late in the movie. Yeah. If it does. Well, definitely, I think it's mostly going to be the gauntlet. And possibly Loki messing around with it and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Doing his business.
How he's going to factor into that movie. And, you know, whether or not, is he going to be the reason why Thanos actually gets the gauntlet?
Is he just going to be a catalyst, or will he be a little bit more involved?
There's the thing that I'm having a tough time with is that there's still so much time until these movies come out that even if one or two characters in some of the movies beforehand really stand out, I mean, that's obviously not going to affect Thor Ragnarok, but it could affect something to do with Infinity War Part 1, or characters that they could try to now introduce in Captain Marvel or in Inhumans and stuff like that. So now with Thor Ragnarok, are we going to see... Is Thor going to make it out of this movie?
See, that's... I mean, we spoke about this the other day briefly, but I wonder... Here's what makes me think that Thor may fall at first just maybe a small amount of time in the film, because when Marvel released the full trailer for Avengers 2, we saw when Captain America tries to grab the hammer, and it just moves.
Just budges, just a little bit, showing that he might be worthy.
The look on Thor's face, he falls. He's like, "What?
Yeah,
what? No.
Yeah.
So I'm almost wondering if he will not be worthy for a short time of the movie to pick up the hammer.
You think they're going to do the same thing they did in Thor 1?
It's
because that the other thing I've been thinking of is him losing either him dying and then coming back, because they did that momentarily in Thor 1.
I think
I hope they don't retread that.
I think what it's going to happen is he's not going to. He's
going to be broken so much.
He will lose the faith in himself to pick up the hammer, and no longer be able to pick it up. Now, whether someone else picks it up at some point in the film, because we were talking about the fact that now we have a female lead in the Thor comics. And I don't think Marvel's going to touch that.
And I don't even want to sound misogynistic in this sense at all, but to me that is the worst decision to do in the movies at this point.
Definitely.
Because they have not... Don't do it just because it's popular somewhere else. Do it because it's established and because you have worked it into your story and your story makes sense. Don't try to hammer it in there just because it's something that a couple of people really want.
And it's brand new. It's something that's just happened.
Same with Falcon being Captain America. You know, these things are brand new. A lot of people are saying, are they going to come into the movies? And it's
2030 Marvel slate. I'm cool with it.
Exactly. You know,
not this one.
Phase 7. Yeah. They can do it in Phase 7. Yeah. But right now, the way that they've set it up, if anything, if they were to do a female Thor, the only person that I could think of taking up that mantle is Lady Sif. That is the only person that they have set up in the movies to be not just worthy enough for it to make sense, for it to be, you know, tangible, for us to actually understand it and see the through line of that story. Now, Joe, you also had some comments and some theories about how Thor is going to be affected in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. No, they really did a good job at that, of showing like Smarlofheim and Andalfheim and Findalfheim.
In that right there, they're not afraid to show that these movies could possibly go somewhere else. And I think that Thor Ragnarok being the end of all things, just by definition, it's very possible he could die in this. And again, that's a great place to bring in the underworld. And who knows, maybe there's an infinity gem down there in Hell's possession. I really think that it's probably not more of if he's going to die, but how he's going to die.
That's actually that's a good point. That the only problem that I have with that is that if they have him die and then they have him go to hell or go to the underworld, it will then, from that point on, it will remove all suspense. No character will ever actually be able to die because there will always be some way. It's what happens in one of my favorite TV shows is Supernatural. And it's what happens almost every season in that show is that one, if not both of the brothers die. Yeah. And they come back. They either their soul gets brought up from hell, or something happens where they're able to like have a retcon and have it completely be changed again. And that's the one thing I don't want to see happen in the superhero movies, because it happens in the comics all the time. And the most prevalent one of that was Superman Returns. Or not the movie, when he actually returned after Doomsday had killed him. And then a year later, I think they might have actually called it Superman Lives. But he all of a sudden just reappeared. And that meant from then on that characters, if they die in the comics, oh, well, they'll be back in a year or two when there's enough demand for them. And I hope that they don't do that in the movies. I hope that if a character does die, the character is dead. It stays gone. Because there's so much that they have to pull from in all of the Marvel characters. We've already seen with Guardians of the Galaxy and now with Inhumans, with Captain Marvel, Black Panther, they're able to go to their tertiary lines of characters and even go even further, and people will still welcome them. They will still embrace them. So there is no shortage of characters that Marvel has to worry about. So I personally don't want to see them have to deal with resurrection or having to deal with anything like that, because to me it's a cop-out.
Yeah, I agree. On a side note, I love how you went to Supernatural, and my mind went to Dragon Ball Z with King Kong. Just had to throw that in there. But and that's why I'm a little bit more partial to the idea that Thor may lose the hammer, because if he's no longer worthy, he does in a way cease to be Thor. Thor would die in for lack of a better term.
Now one thing though, what they've been talking about with the female Thor is that Thor is now like 007. It's like a code name. Yeah. And I have a little problem with that because to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but to my understanding, there has never been another Thor. He's always been Thor, the son of Odin.
That I would agree with.
And to me, I don't like them changing it into a code name, because that's how in the comic books, when Thor comes out as a woman, that is how it is. It's whoever she be worthy. They've actually changed it to that now. Whoever will be worthy, or if they be worthy, it's if she will be worthy. Yeah. So I have a little bit of an issue with that, because that's just a gimmick for gimmick's sake. And I you've heard my rants about Ghostbusters 3, but I don't think of anything like that. But Joe, do you have anything to say?
With Thor Ragnarok specifically, it's based off of the Fear Itself comics. Going back to Captain America, I think it'd be a great place actually to bring back Red Skull, because in the Fear Itself comics, you're dealing with his daughter. So
they're doing what now? Sorry.
In the Fear Itself comic books, which Thor Ragnarok is supposed to be based off of, you're dealing with the Red Skull's daughter coming back and getting these magic hammer. The Thing from the Fantastic Four had also got one of the hammers. Juggernaut had got one, and they go on this giant spree of mayhem all around the world. So I think it'd be a great place to pick up from the ashes of Red Skull and bring somebody new with that title in.
I didn't even know about
No,
that.
I didn't know about that either.
That's a really good way to have them bring Red Skull in if they were to come back.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Red Skull come back. The only problem with that is that I don't believe that Hugo Weaving will be coming back.
No,
and Marvel is in a point
no.
right now where they have so many characters that they want to use from that I don't think that they need to pull him from. Actually, for those of you who watch AMC Movie Talk, on I believe it was yesterday's episode of Mailbag, that question was actually addressed, and John Campy actually gave a really good explanation as to why he feels that most likely will not happen. So I really do have to commend that answer, because that pretty much sums up everything with Red Skull, whether or not he's going to come back, because it's not a character that they need.
No,
they set him up in a way where they could bring him back into the storyline if they wanted to, but they don't have to.
I don't think Hugo Weaving would work.
No, I mean, even with the makeup, but it's just, I don't know. I think that they need to move on. They've already established so many other villains and so many other directions they could go on. So I really do think that they could move on from that.
We've got enough villains in the Marvelverse that you don't need to bring people back.
No, we just need quality villains.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the biggest thing. Now we're on to the big tamale, as it were.
Yeah.
Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. Now, what do you guys think is going to be the main storyline for Part 1 and Part 2? Is it going to be one storyline that's split into two films, or is it going to be two films that have an overarching story that one is going to end not necessarily on a cliffhanger, although they are coming out a year apart, so it might end on a cliffhanger, but do you think the first movie is going to be about Thanos either culminating in him getting all the gems together with the gauntlet, or is that not going to happen until much further into the second film?
I mean, I think it'll be set up. I don't think he'll have all the crystals till he'll have all the stones until Part 2.
So you think that Part 1 is going to be him getting the final stone?
I think Part 1 will be Part 1 will probably end with him putting the stone in place, or obtaining it in some way. So,
well, once he gets the gauntlet, I mean, it's the end of all things.
Sure.
Essentially, he can control time, space, matter.
Yeah.
So I mean, he could look at something and just think it, and it could be turned into atoms.
Yeah,
just disintegrate if he wanted to, and that could be anything. He could look at a planet and just say, nope, and it's gone.
Yeah,
if he really wanted to.
Yeah.
So I mean, how are they going to reel that in? How are they going to, cinematic wise, making it make sense for everybody to be able to view it? How do you think that they're going to? How do you think they're going to rein all that stuff in?
It's going to be a feat. It's going to be an incredible job to do it.
Do you think the Gauntlet is going to have all the powers that it has in the comics? Do you think it's going to have that in the movies?
I wonder if they're going to water it down. It's
because they've done that with Ultron.
Yeah,
they watered him down.
for sure. So I would imagine they probably will water it down a little bit, maybe cut a couple powers away or something like that, just to make it easier to grasp as a viewer too. Yeah. Because with all his powers, things would probably get very confusing very quickly.
Oh yeah, and it's just like, okay, well, this is just ridiculous because he'll have one power, they'll find a way to overcome it, and then boom, he just has another power come out.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if they did pull the full spectrum of his abilities and the Gauntlet's abilities, but will they do that? Hard to say.
And especially splitting it over two films, that's going to be really hard for somebody who has absolute power for them to not be wiped out immediately.
Yeah.
So that basically goes over everything about how these movies are going to connect. I mean, we know we have the standalones. We have Captain Marvel and Inhumans. I don't feel they're going to really impact any of the other films. They're going to be standoff movies, just very similar to Guardians.
Yeah.
With the exception of the Infinity Stone, that movie was a standalone movie. You could just keep it that way and not have to worry about it. So I think Captain Marvel and Inhumans are going to be just like that. The other films, on the other hand, are really going to have a major impact on how the overall universe is going to be viewed. So I'm really excited to see how this is going to overcome.
Oh yeah, me too.
I cannot wait for Avengers: Age of Ultron. I mean, that movie just looks all kinds of insane.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just the concepts they're doing with that story, But yeah, this year has been our breakdown of Marvel Phase 3, all the upcoming films that are going to be coming out of that. So you guys, this is part 1 of part 3 of a 3-segment episode that I'm doing today with both Devin and with Joe. So make sure you guys check out the second part. We're going to be breaking down all the day's movie news, as well as talking about some user questions. Then the final part today is going to be an introspective look at Interstellar, talking about spoilers and talking about in-depth theories within that movie and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to talk about that. But yeah, if we get more information about the Marvel Cinematic Universe or anything else like that, then I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click the subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You can get updates whenever we post a new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. Devin, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at thatguybabb, Babb. You can follow me on any social network you like under the same tag too.
Perfect. And Joe, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/rook, ROOK, Moonhammer. Moonhammer is all one word.
Perfect. All right. Well, at any point in time, if you guys have any topics or questions you'd like to have discussed on the show, you can go ahead and send a comment in the comment section, or you can email us at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com. And on every Friday episode, we'll try to get to as many as we can. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.